All right, guys, time for another Bearded Wonder Explains. This time we're going to be talking about the Great Recession. And in order to understand the Great Recession, we really have to have a pretty deep understanding of the housing market, specifically what makes it work. So, when somebody wants to buy a house, usually they don't have enough money by themselves to buy the house, and so they go to a bank. Hopefully, not like this guy, but they go to a bank, they get a loan, and then they use the loan to buy the house. The idea is then they start making small payments back to the bank, and that is basically how that works. So let's understand what's in it for the bank, because banks are basically businesses, which means they're trying to make money. There are three ways that banks make money. The first is what they call an origin or a closing cost. That's basically the price to get the loan. You pay it up front. A lot of times you build it into the loan as well, but that's basically cash that the bank gets right away for making the loan, period. Then the bank charges interest. That's basically the extra money that you pay when you're paying back the loan in order to get the loan. It's the cost of the loan, if you will. These two things, the interest and the origin, are basically where the bank makes its profit. The other one is what we call principal, and that's literally where you pay back what you borrowed. And they would work out maybe, the origin might be a little bit smaller as a percentage here than it is in the actual loan. But this is pretty close. So the bank over a long time makes a lot of interest. And that's good. However, what the bank really likes to do, where they really make their money, is in those origin or those closing costs. As a matter of fact, if they can turn around and sell their loan, they're happy to do it. But the bank likes to make loans. But they need money to do that. Well, in the 90s, the government steadily kind of decreased the interest rate of money going to the banks. The banks then passed that along to people. And because the interest rates were low, a lot more people wanted to get loans. When the demand for the loans and the demand for houses to buy with those loans went up, housing prices started to shoot up. Well, that's good. A lot of people started buying new houses. A lot of people got, we have a higher home ownership rate, which means new construction goes way up. And that's good for the banks because they can get lots of origins or lots of closing costs kind of built into this process. However, we do have to understand that basically after the bank gets that origin or that closing cost, obviously that's not nearly enough to cover the loan, which means that they do need to get their monthly payments, which is principal and interest usually. And so we have to kind of pay attention to the kinds of people that are getting loans. There are what we would consider subprime loans. Those are risky people that run up a bunch of debt. I'll let you guess which one that is. And then there are the responsible people, the people who have, they pay back everything on time. They have a nice savings account, other things like that. And so those people are a low risk to the bank, which means that the bank's not really taking much of a chance giving them a loan because they're likely to pay it back. However, the higher risk people are a huge risk, and so the bank would rather. First off, the bank would rather make a loan to both of them. They both pay a closing cost, which means that the bank gets cash for both of them. However, the bank would, if it could, prefer to not hang on to those high risk loans because those people might not pay them back, and the bank is then going to have to repossess the house in order to get its investment back. So the banks had to figure out how they could make loans but not have to take the chance of buying them. And so what they did is they created package deals. Or actually other people created package deals where they put a whole bunch of good, safe loans together with a few of these not so safe subprime loans. And then they would basically put those package deals together and sell them to other banks or to other people on Wall Street, and then those people would collect the interest and the principal. And the third party guy, shifty looking dude over there, is basically he would collect a fee as well for selling it, which means basically that the banks loved making the loans and the brokers loved putting package deals together because they're both making crazy amounts of money. Now, this works as long as people pay back their loans. In addition to this, the bank figured out that it could collect even more closing costs if it gave something called a home equity loan. So since everybody's house values were going up, they would take a second loan from the bank based on the value of your house. So if you bought it for $100,000 and now your house is worth $150,000, you can borrow $30,000 more dollars based on your home's value, and just blow it, which is what a lot of people did, and ran up debt and other things like that. And again, that's more closing costs, that's more bundles, that's more money for everybody. Problem is, it was also more debt. Now, as long as the house values continue to rise, this wasn't a problem. And so for a while, everything just kind of went on. Everybody just kind of got their money. People got their houses. No problem. The problem is that eventually these people do have to pay back their loans. After all, most of the cost of the loan is what they spent on it. And so eventually what would happen is somebody would default. Or more people would default. Now, we shouldn't be surprised because these were people who were high-risk buyers to begin with. This leads to foreclosure, which literally means that the bank takes possession of your home. Most of us, if we have a mortgage, we don't own our home. We own part of our house, and the bank owns the other part. But the deal that we have with the bank is that at any point they can kind of sell it to get their money back if we stop paying. So basically that the bank wants to sell the houses to get its money back. The problem is that this increases the supply of homes. And when the supply of the houses goes up, the price of the houses goes down, which is a problem if you remember, because a lot of these people basically were only buying the houses because they were worth so much, or they were getting those second mortgages because they were worth so much. This caused banks to start to be a little bit more careful, which also caused the price to go down even more, because not only is the supply going up, but the demand is going down because the loans are more careful. And so this is going to cause situations where more people default. The bank takes more houses, so the supply of the houses continues to go up despite the fact that the demand is going down, which causes prices to go down even more. After all, banks have no use for a house. They can't live in it. They want to sell it for whatever they can. They started actually selling them at a loss. Which means that the banks were actually losing money. More people were defaulting. Home values collapsed, which caused all of these people who worked in construction, who worked in the stock market, who worked in small businesses even, to have serious problems, because the houses were not worth as much. If you owned a cabinet shop, for example, you're not hiring new cabinet makers anymore because nobody's putting your fancy new cabinets in houses. And so basically the whole thing starts to fall apart. The banks actually started to lose so much money on the houses that they were in trouble as well. They had to get help from the government. This is what we call the bailout, or basically where the government gave money to the banks to get them out of trouble. Now, eventually this did work. They started giving that money to responsible people who bought the houses dirt cheap, and it was a good deal for them. And so that's kind of the end of the Great Recession. Eventually, all the values and everything kind of stabilized. The stock market goes back up. And this is a way oversimplistic model, but it gives you a basic idea of those ideas of supply and demand and loans, and the housing market and how they kind of work in American society. So that's it for me today. I hope you have a good day.